Hot off the press. Well, not really, actually. We're actually pretty late to getting to this.
Do you need glasses for this?
Probably should have. You're the glasses guy.
I know.
Usually the reading the press guy.
Chris is press.
I've been lasered already.
He still needs another pair. Anyway.
Having recently filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, Diamond Comic Distributors Incorporated is clearly in dire straits.
Uh-oh.
A new report now suggests that the company may be shutting its doors for good sooner than expected. So this is actually, as of today, this article. As reported by the Baltimore Banner, very reputable source, as we know, Diamond Comic Distributors is facing the possibility of layoffs and the closure of its Hunt Valley headquarters if it fails to find a buyer by April 1st. The company revealed in a federally mandated notification to Maryland Department of Labor this week that if the sale effort provides fruitless, it would cease operations, close its main office, and lay off about 168 employees. That's very specific. Diamond had stated during the bankruptcy filing that the company would potentially sell parts of its business, including the lucrative board and card game distributor Alliance Game Distributors, to its Canadian competitor Universal Distributors. That's somebody that we actually deal with on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I'm not going to read the whole article, but essentially Diamond has like a bunch of different operations, and part of the bankruptcy proceeding is they're trying to find buyers for each chunk of the business, essentially. So
slicing and
it sounds like they've got Universal lined up to buy Alliance. They've got some sort of deal worked out there. Yep. But they still need Diamond UK. They need someone to buy that, basically. Or they're going to have to go all the way through. They're going to shut the doors, essentially. And this is sort of just like a kick in the pants on top of a kick in the pants. We'll get to sort of like some of the history a little bit here in a minute, but new information also. Apparently Image Comics is also pulling from Diamond. So for those of you not in the comic world, Image is the largest independent comic manufacturer, essentially. So they basically do they support independent authors. So essentially the benefit of like writing for Image is you get to keep all of your own intellectual property. So if I come up with a great idea, I get published by Image. They don't hold the rights to my stuff, so if it ever turns into a movie or a TV show or something else, I get to maintain the rights to it. Whereas Marvel and DC obviously would hold your rights and hold you hostage there. That's actually why Image came to be in the 90s for those sorts of things. So they're pulling out of Diamond as well, which is just brutal. I was like, what comics do they even have left at this point? And it sounds like Image is going to more of a direct sale model with their comic book shops. And apparently it's maybe taking the opportunity here to stick the nails to those stores a little bit. So they're like increasing prices, or at least the threshold for how much comic books have to spend every month in order to get like the same margin that they would be getting normally. So it's tough, man. Like I guess we can give you a little bit more history before we go into a little bit of the analysis here. Like what does this mean for people? But essentially, it sounds like the problems for Diamond started a number of years ago when Marvel and DC pulled away from using Diamond, which they had been using for decades, essentially, as their distributor in North America and the UK.
Yeah, that's a problem.
That is a bit of a problem. I don't know if even if you don't read comics, you probably hear the words Marvel and DC, and you're like, "Isn't that all the comics?
Isn't that all of them?
Isn't that all of them?"
And you don't get to.
I'm talking about Batman. I'm talking about Spider-Man. I'm talking about Avengers. I'm talking. Gone.
It is a bit like your local power company just saying, "Nah, find your own source." You're like, "What?" I guess we put some solar panels up. I don't know.
So it sounds like. The best way to describe a company like Diamond is like a bit of they've essentially been a zombie company for a few years here, just kind of lumbering forward, things just kind of getting worse and worse and worse. Sound like they've racked up about $50 million in debt, and they owe companies like Wizards of the Coast because they distribute Magic cards and Hasbro products. They owe them about $1 million. They owe people like Catalyst Games $400K, which is crazy to me. They make BattleTech. I'm like, how? Like that's a lot of BattleTech.
Wow.
Like, and for companies like, Catalyst, that's a huge amount of money for them.
I guess they were relying on Diamond to get their products out for them.
Like, and it's kind of an interesting discussion. And we got Army Painter here for $300K, which is a huge amount of money as well for a company that size. It's crazy. People forget that like. a lot of the companies making stuff, just in order to get the large volume of things that they have out, it's done on like credit.
Yep.
Right. So, and obviously we can see here it's
Get
huge,
it out,
huge
pay
amount.
later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pay later, and just so you guys know, we don't get that.
No,
We don't
no.
get that kind of luxury.
They're like, hey,
Yeah.
your credit card is declining. You're like,
You're not getting nothing.
You're like, hang on a second.
Pay now.
Yeah. You're like, but I've been paying on time for years. And you're like, that's great, but get another card I can use because this one's not working.
So I think like what would be like interesting discussion here is like, number one, like, does this tell us anything about the hobby market in general? What's been going on? What's happening? What trend does this tell us? Or is this just a company that was, kind of doomed because of some things that were done, right? Maybe poor management, or maybe some decisions that were made. What's your initial thoughts? I know you're not big in the comic world.
I'm not, but a lot of this is about like a distributor.
Yeah, this is just about a distributor.
And distributors are just like macro versions of a hobby store in some ways.
Yeah.
And a couple of things come to mind. One, this is probably just a delayed COVID thing, like where they weren't able to sell things at the volume that they needed. Although there was a bit of a boom during COVID for certain hobby segments, I don't know about them. Like, maybe the Magic was doing well, although there seems to be a problem with that too. I know not every set. There has been a bit of a roller coaster because of like you had, I forget what you have. I'm going to misquote the years, but it's essentially you had like, I don't know if it was like 21 to 22, there was like a boom, and then like 23 was a sluggish year, and then 24 was like rebounding into 25 now. Like it's kind of like, if you talk about, let's just this purely as Magic and maybe Pokemon, it was like quite a roller coaster. So if they have got like $1 million in debt with Wizards, that's probably like a few pallets that they can't pay for some reason. So they've probably been kind of breaking even. So maybe the Magic money, maybe the money they were making off that was like propping up other things that weren't doing so well.
I'll pose a question here, because like you have a good sense of this. What effect does being squeezed for money have on a business like ours, and a business even like, so you made a great comparison, like they're just bigger versions of hobby stores, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they obviously carry all the same products as us, more or less, and they're just dealing with like more razor thin margins. What effects do you think, like, because obviously for years they've been squeezed for liquidity, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you can't pay for things, then you can't bring in things it's just a slow death. You can't order the same quantities anymore of the things that even the hot sellers. And then every time you take a dud release, you take it straight to the gut, and it just compounds the problem. So yeah, I think
you kind of go into this like, I think this is even more crucial with like cards, especially like Magic, Pokemon, stuff like that. If you can't play the long game, you're like missing out on all the money, essentially.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Like if you're like squeezed for money and you have to move off of sets really quickly, especially on the distributor level, like if you're taking any kind of loss on any of the products you're selling, man, you're really like missing out on that huge money you can make in 2 to 3 years, right?
I mean, so there's this is not even a secret. It's like it's just the most bizarre thing of any industry. But the card world with distributors is I don't even know how to comprehend it in a way that doesn't break my brain. But they will routinely hold product back because they're like, oh, we're gonna sell half or 3/4 now, and we'll just keep a little bit around because to wait and see, so they can then see how the market does. So we see this all the time with anything, Flesh and Blood, Pokemon, Magic. They'll be like the first wave is like regular cost, whatever Wizards says is they need to sell it for. It's I don't know, $100 a box, I'm making it up. And then it's doing really hot. It's selling out everywhere. And then they go, oh, we got some more. We just some trickled in, and it's 30% more or 50% more or whatever. And you're like, that's really convenient, but it's. And I'm like, how come it costs more? The manufacturing cost didn't change in a month or two, and there's always an email that says it's always so, I don't know, it's so boilerplate by now. They're just like, oh, we found some more or something. And you're like, it was tucked in behind the other pallet of. Yeah. So that being said, in general, that's where they have the storage, obviously, so they could keep sets and boxes, and I see it that like the Pokemon distributor has like. They've got all kinds of stuff like old boxes that are like hundreds, and every time I go look, I just go scrolling through it. So it's more expensive. Oh, they just keep raising. They just keep watching the TCG player graph, and they keep upping the cost. So they don't mind that. They're like, yeah, this will just hang on to it as like a retirement plan. So, so anyway, anyway, in the case of the diamond thing, it's very like, as much as we can tell that, it looks like they have other subsidiaries and branches connected. It's probably one division, and they have others, and some are doing fine, some are not doing fine, and it starts to get, mismanagement starts getting compounding, like we said. So yeah, I don't know which one was the nail, but some of these are interesting. Like they're struggling to pay for, paints and models, and and those aren't like, whether it was Army Paint or Battle like Cryptozoic or whatever, like those things have been, as far as I can tell, doing just fine the last few years. So it's strange that they there must be another, maybe it's must be the comic section of their company has been a crater, and just eating the any money they've been making has been sunk into keeping that alive.
Well, yeah, obviously, like I think there's a couple factors there. Like, although we're not a comic shop, like I do actively participate in like a national retailer group. It's like a private group for the retailers. And there's a lot of comic people in there, and they're always commenting and talking about the industry and like orders. And I can't tell. Over the years of just watching that group, the amount of like negative comments about like dealing with Diamond, in terms of like either not necessarily poor customer service, but like, I got, I did this order with Diamond, and like it cost me $700 to ship. And like they didn't tell me that before, and it was like an $800 order, and you're just like,
goodness,
I wouldn't have ordered it if like stuff, little things like that like just erode like confidence and trust, and that stuff's like pretty hard to repair once you hurt people like that. And I think, just to kind of comment on like the state of comics and a bit, like I think a couple of things have happened in the last 5 years, right? Like obviously they've lost their monopoly on Marvel and DC, which is a huge deal in the North American market. But like comic consumption in general, I think has gone down a little bit. I just know, like, just personally, there seems to be a few less shops selling comics, and the ones you go into, seems like the single issue thing is dying off a little bit. There's a bit more on the trade side, like the thicker books or whatever, like seems to be more of the business now. And like when you think about like the cost of shipping and how it's changed over the last couple of years and how much more expensive it is from when we even opened, man, like you think of like a box like this just full of books.
Oh yeah,
and how heavy that is.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And man, like it's just going all into the margins, right? Like, and it isn't anyone's fault. It's just sort of like, man, the distributor getting like hit with these, like probably, getting a worse margin there, and then they're selling it to their clients, the end users, the hobby stores that are trying to sell these things, and they've got to charge a fortune to ship it to them. And it's just like, man, it seems like the distribution model with something like that is kind of not falling apart, but it's just so much more tricky, right? Like, how do you get these heavy things across places like Canada, which are massive countries, cost a ton of money to ship, right? I think that's a huge issue for sure. And it's not like the consumers are like, oh, that's fine, just like increase the margin to where you need it to be. There's no appetite for that.
No.
The problem is you have places like Amazon, right, that are selling these trades and comic books, because they're going right to consumer essentially, and they do it for dirt cheap. They'll make a nickel or whatever if they need to on something.
Yeah. Like I said, this all is frankly sort of not, and this is not Diamond specific, but unsurprising. Like if there was going to be business/hobby store closures COVID related, it would logical that a distributor would also feel, or there would be one somewhere that took it because they weren't agile enough, or they couldn't deal with, like, maybe they hemorrhaged a ton of, maybe you have too many employees, maybe the labor was like they're paying out a lot of labor costs because they're probably paying people to stay home. I don't know how. Hopefully they're able to provide their employees during the COVID year. That being said, COVID in the States was like a little different. I don't think there was a lot of like savage closures in terms. It depends on what state and whatever, but I don't know. It's the weirdest part about that press release is all the companies they owe money to are like, I would say, are like games and products that have been doing fine in the last while. So I was like, wow, you guys are really like abusing that, you know, drawing money and then and you know, and maybe so that's an odd that's a part of the equation
Well,
I'm
I remember,
not able to reconcile.
I remember looking at Alliance even like when we first like you know, because they're another distributor that's close by or whatever. I think we looked into them briefly, and I think they like just price wise, like they were one of the more expensive places to get things. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing at the end of the day, like when you're a hobby shop like ours, it's like you're not much different than a customer. Price isn't the only thing you're looking at, obviously. Like you're looking at like customer service and like, can these people get me something reliably? Can I like, if I build a good rapport with this company, am I going to make sure I'm getting stuff every time something new and good comes out, right? Like those are things you obviously care about. But like with some things, it's just the price.
So there's that. The other thing though is there's less choice than you you think too, because it's not like, you know, if you go look for a Space Marine kit, there could be like a dozen stores easily within a short drive. But distributor wise, there might only be like in Canada, there's only like 2 to 3 for any, like that's it. And I need some other small ones for some niche products, but it's like, I mean, I think the States is like maybe like 4 or something.
I think they're 5.
So this is one of them, I'm sure, and it's getting sliced up and eaten up by the competitors who are taking the good parts and just leaving. So they probably they had that anchor of the comics for so long, and it must be like, you know, maybe you know, you hear us commenting on how poorly things like the Atomic Mass products are doing because they're you know, Marvel based or whatever, and I don't know about you, like again, I'm this opinion of mine is kind of irrelevant because I'm one person, but yeah, if I don't care about anything Marvel related in the mainstream, then maybe there's a bunch of other people, like, I don't know, like, but then again, like, why would a comic book person stop caring if that's something they love? Like, it's I don't know, but I guess if like their local store isn't getting the stuff, and maybe they've moved on to other places to get stuff, which is probably a thing.
Yeah, I mean, like another phenomenon in the last couple of years we've noticed too is like the selling direct phenomenon, right? Like there's a lot more companies that are just going direct to consumer with products, right? Like
It's true.
a lot of companies have realized that there's a ton of money in that. So like conventional business to business relationships, not that they're like gone. It's just like there has been a tiny bit of a breakdown. Like even like, just to take it back to Games Workshop, like they do way more direct to customer stuff now than they did 5-6 years ago.
Yeah,
like way more.
Oh
way
yeah,
more.
it used to have to all funnel through their store
Almost entirely before.
or you're independent, and that was it. And then the web store was like kind of there for something.
Yeah,
but it was like Black Library this and Forgeable that, but most people didn't default to the GW website for things. They went to their store. For everything, right? Yeah. And I'm seeing that with some like customers that are kind of rolling back in because of like Old World or something, and they're like, "What do you mean I can't get this and this?" And I'm like, "You can, but we have to order it from the website." And they're like, "What? It's not on the shelf?" I'm like, "No, it's a current item." I'm like, "Yeah, online only though." Like, and they're like, they can't. Their brain's like, "But I want to come and buy it." I'm like, "You can, you just can't get it today."
Yeah. So I'm sure there's examples of that happening, right? Like, and I think the minute those companies, like the pandemic, definitely changed the world in the sense that like a lot of companies were reeling and like kind of like trying to figure out how to keep doing business and, you know, in the difficult times. And I think selling direct to customer was something that made sense in the moment. And I think when you get that sweet taste of like full margin. Like that you get all the margin. You get the margin you were going to get selling to the distributor, plus the margin that the store was going to get selling it. You get all. It's like it's a crazy margin.
I mean, look, these guys probably got squeezed by their competing distributors who are just like getting all the stock.
Yeah,
you know, they go to, I don't know what the American ones are, but wherever the next biggest guy, he probably goes to Wizards and goes,
well, like,
give me 10 pallets or something, and then you know, and then Diamond, who already owes money and has a you know, a C credit rating, all of a sudden is like, can I get 3 pallets? And they're like, no, we can send you half a pallet or something. Like, it just starts to, you know, once you're in that negative.
Well, think about it in like terms of hobby stores. Imagine you had 3 hobby stores in a city or whatever, right? And one hobby store was like squeezed for money. Like you would start to notice because like you'd go into the shop, you'd see less products on the shelf. You know, when you ask, like when new releases come in, there'd just be less of them. Just little things like that. And what happens? The customers start to lose a bit of faith
Yep.
that they're going to have the stuff they want, and they start looking elsewhere.
They just go elsewhere.
It's exactly the same with hobby shop owners. Like,
Yep.
you know, we're consumers in our own way, right? Like we're you know, distributors are, you know, we might not have physical shelves we're looking at, but like we're looking at SKUs online, and like, you know, when you see things sold out and not in stock and not getting restocked regularly, things like that, right? And another product of like, you know, it did look like they have a lot of employees, but like, if you have to cut costs, maybe you have less people working in like customer service. And now maybe you have less accounts that you're like.
Maybe
you're
they
not
used to have
talking-
300 employees and now they only have 160 or whatever.
Maybe you're not having good conversations with your, you know, and building that rapport, and then like that's just another knock on the block, right? So it starts to really roll downhill, right?
Yeah.
I think that's probably just some like insights into what it could be. Without no, like, you know, being there and seeing
All we know for the press release is not good.
Not good,
It's
not good at all.
No.
But I do hope for the benefit of the employees there that someone does come in and buy them.
Well, some will go to Universal or something.
Yeah. The Alliance people,
Yeah.
it sounds like, are going to be okay. But the Diamond UK people are a lifeline. So if you're a very wealthy person and you want to build an underperforming company,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Well, we hope you guys enjoyed that. We, you know, it obviously it's tangential to what we do, but like we're not experts on the whole comic thing. But we hope you enjoyed like the insight into just kind of our take from, you know, owning a hobby shop and dealing with distributors and sort of like that sort of like side of things or whatever. Hopefully, shed some light on it. Yeah. If you like these kind of videos, you can like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. And you can check us out on Patreon. Apparently, I'm supposed to say Patreon.
You say
I'm
a lot
getting
of
in a lot of
things wrong.
trouble.
It's fine. Yeah. They're not used to it.
Jay's used to it. Yeah, he just rolls off. Yeah.
I could. Yeah.
Patreon, where you pay money to be a Treon.
Yes.
Yeah, do that. We appreciate you.
Send us some money. Thanks.
Take care.